A plane landing in a parking lot, a delivery man falling into a fountain, a woman going up the escalators in the opposite direction, or a thief who doesn't really know how to rob. Sit back and relax. Here are some very strange and hilarious sequences that were accidentally filmed by surveillance cameras. In this footage, a man was walking home from the supermarket with shopping bags in his hands. Since he lived on the 4th floor of his building and was very tired, he decided to take the elevator home instead of going up the stairs. But when he entered the elevator shaft, he realized that an iron bar stuck between the mirror and the wall prevented him from properly pressing the button that led to his floor. Naturally, he decided to move the bar so that he would have more freedom and better access to the buttons. But as soon as he did, the mirror that the bar was holding fell on him and broke into 1,000 pieces. What he didn't know was that moments before he entered, 2 young men were in the elevator. During their short trip from the top of the building to the 1st floor, they were somewhat bored, and to pass the time, they started to fool around by playing boxing in front of their own reflections in the mirror and knocked the mirror down. To prevent it from breaking, they simply pinned it with an iron bar. After the mirror fell on his head, the man finally chose to take his bags up the stairs. But the poor guy ended up with a dented head and slashed arms from the shreds of glass he received as sharp projectiles. This accident made him decide to always use the stairs instead of the elevator. In Iran, in the city of Masjid Soliman, a man went to an ATM to withdraw money. While he was very focused on his task, a large jet of oil suddenly spurted out of the manhole near the ATM. At first, the man was very surprised because he did not understand what the oil jet was doing in the sewer, and his amazement was further amplified when the jet turned into a huge puddle of black oil. The man became frightened and hesitated for a long time to leave, leaving his ATM card and money in the machine. Finally, he still waited for the teller to deliver his money before he ran away. He was afraid the puddle would turn into a huge wave. This man knew he had money in his bank account, but he never thought he would find black gold. In the city of Decatur, Georgia, a woman was walking out of the Spot Sports Bar and Grill. She had just had an interview there that turned out to be successful, as she had been hired that day. So the young KK, carried away by an immeasurable joy, wanted to celebrate his success and couldn't wait to get home to do so. As she passed through the parking lot, after making sure no one was watching, the young woman began to dance. She did some very dynamic dance steps, so happy she was able to land her dream job. After her very discreet yet very lively dance, the young woman resumed a normal position to continue her way as naturally as possible. The only worry is that KK thought she was alone in the parking lot, and that's why she allowed herself so much freedom. But what she didn't know was that there was a surveillance camera above her, and her employer could see everything as she made her little scene. Dakara Spence, the woman who had just hired her, couldn't believe her eyes when she saw the scene. She was so surprised that she could not keep it to herself and immediately posted the video on social media. KK, who thought she was very discreet, was not at all. Since her dance of joy made in just a few days several million views, she even became very popular. But thanks to this, she was able to prove to her employer that she was the most motivated of all the candidates. These images taken in an administrative building show a delivery man coming to drop off a meal ordered by one of the employees. To ensure that the meal would remain hot when delivered to the customer, the delivery man ran back in without seeing ahead. However, at the reception area, there was a decorative fountain containing several dozen koi carp. While running, the delivery man ended up tripping and falling right into the fountain with his helmet and his meal in hand, disturbing all the fish in there. The funny thing is that he got out, retrieved the bag containing the famous meal, and just after, he went all wet to drop it off at the reception as if nothing happened. The delivery man brought his meal to Safe Harbor, and even if he had to wet his shirt for that, he then left, all dripping, to pick up other orders. I can't imagine the faces of the following customers who saw him in this state. He who wanted to deliver a hot meal had to deliver it completely frozen, but at least he arrived at his destination. That's the main thing. In a bar, a young waiter was ready to start a long day of work. At one point, the man had to serve a half-dozen large glasses of beer full to the brim. He took the tray containing the 6 glasses as carefully as possible and started to run towards the customer's table, taking all the precautions in the world. But sometimes precautions are not enough, and sometimes you need a little luck. On this day, the waiter didn't have any, because even when he was moving slowly so as to not drop the full glasses, one of them lost its balance and spilled on the floor. But the waiter's misfortune didn't end there, because the second glass followed him, and then the third one too. Seeing that his day had already been ruined, the waiter, in a state of dismay, dropped the entire tray, deliberately knocking over the glasses that were left. His tray ended up completely on the floor. The glasses were broken. The beer spilled everywhere. He had to clean everything up, put his tray back together, and prepare a good excuse for his employer, who was watching the scene through the surveillance cameras. It was definitely not his day. Nowadays, as soon as this waiter feels he's going to have a bad day, he takes the day off to avoid paying for the mess. In a shopping mall, a woman was shopping. At one point, she wanted to get to the top floor of the mall, a floor she could only access by taking the escalators. Thankfully, she had figured that out at least. But what she didn't understand was which ones to take. And that was harder though. The mall contains, like all malls in the world, escalators in opposite directions, some leading to the upper floor, others leading to the lower floor. So the woman took the escalator that led down to go up. The woman walked up the stairs, while the stairs took her downwards, which took her even further away from the top floor. After a long and arduous climb, the woman finally made it to the second floor out of breath. But let me tell you, by not bothering to think, she drew mocking laughter from everyone who crossed her path, and even the security guards who took great pleasure in mocking her through the cameras. She wanted to go upstairs, but her dignity was at an all-time low that day. On a beautiful September morning in 2017 in Plainville, Connecticut, a man woke up excited because the day before, he had planned to do an activity he hadn't done in a long time. Manfred Forrest decided to tease the clouds and take advantage of the clear skies to fly his private plane. But since it had been a long time since he had taken the controls of his plane, his activity did not go at all as he wished. During his flight, Manfred had a lot of trouble flying his plane, so much so that he lost control completely and ended up crashing into a parking lot. The plane had indeed hit a tree, making an incredible loop before falling back on its wheels in front of the row of cars. A spectacular stunt that the surveillance cameras of the parking lot have immortalized. The pilot, who miraculously escaped with only minor injuries, was immediately transported to Center Connecticut Hospital. He was not able to make his flight, but at least he was able to park his plane like a pro in the middle of the row of cars. That's something. A young woman was taking a walk in her suburb when suddenly she noticed that the garbage can in her neighborhood was overturned. So thinking she was doing the right thing, she decided to lift it. Except that day, it was very windy and she, on the other hand, had no wind in her sails because when she lifted the trash can, the poor woman received a lid in her face, which had been lifted because of the strong winds. The brutal blow immediately pushed the woman backwards and she suffered an extreme nose ache. From that day on, she never again dared to put her nose into anything that did not concern her. These surveillance cameras in a garage caught a woman fixing her car. At one point, realizing that one of the tools was stored at a hatch in the ceiling, she reached up to get it. She set up a ladder, climbed up, and started looking for the tool with her hands. But since she was not used to doing DIY, let alone climbing ladders, the overweight woman lost her balance, dropped the ladder, and got stuck on the ceiling. She didn't know what to do. She couldn't let go for fear of getting hurt, nor could she lean on the ladder, which was quite far from her feet. Well, the young woman certainly ended up letting go and getting a little bump on her butt. But what is sure is that since that day, she never wanted to become a mechanic again. In Thailand, a man walked into a jewelry store. He wanted to make the salesman believe that he was looking for a piece of jewelry to buy, when in fact, he intended to steal it. He first asked the jeweler to show him his products, and after making his choice, he put his hand on a gold chain. He took it, put it around his neck to pretend to try it on, and then immediately ran for the exit door to escape. Except that the unfortunate thing was that the door was locked, so the thief couldn't escape and went back to his owner in shame and confusion. The thief got the biggest embarrassment of his life, in addition to being arrested by the police. Maybe behind bars in prison, he will have plenty of time to understand that it is better to earn money by sweat than by running after stealing something. Two young girls were waiting in front of an elevator for it to open its doors so they can get in and hide, because what they had in mind was far beyond what you can imagine. Indeed, the two young women who were apparently just friends were in fact lovers. They wanted to kiss discreetly and out of sight, so as soon as the elevator opened, they entered it and devote themselves to fiery kisses and torrid embraces. They took all their ease and kissed each other all the time the elevator took to go up the floors. An intimate moment where they were alone in the world. Well, almost, because the two young women were too carried away by passion to realize that they were in fact filmed by their surveillance camera above the elevator. They went out very happy, but they will never know that they were not alone in this elevator. They, who wanted discretion, got the opposite. So what do you think of these hilarious sequences? Which one do you find the most incredible? Tell us what you think in the comments. And if you like this video, Don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell to receive all the notifications and not miss anything of our next contents.